Picture this. You're out on the open ocean, right? Just enjoying the breeze, looking at the water, when suddenly, boom, a colossal nuclear missile bursts right out of the surface and tears into the sky. It's a terrifying, absolutely awe-inspiring display of modern engineering. And the craziest part? It's all made possible by massive, incredibly complex machines hiding literally just beneath the waves. So welcome to today's Explainer. We are diving deep into the anatomy of the nuclear submarine.
To really wrap our heads around these mechanical beasts, we're going to break things down into 6 quick parts. We'll cover the power beneath the waves, the physics of sinking, what it's like inside the Leviathan, surviving the crush, nuclear versus conventional power, and finally, a look at the global submarine fleet.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the power beneath the waves, and why these are the ultimate stealth weapons.
Now, to put the sheer scale of this danger into perspective, just look at this comparison. We all know the historical destruction caused at Hiroshima, which was a bomb with the yield of around 13 kilotons. Well, a modern Trident II missile, the kind launched from an American Ohio-class sub, boasts an estimated yield of 475 kilotons. I mean, that completely dwarfs our historical reference points. It's staggering. And you have to remember, these weapons are actively moving around the globe right now, totally undetected.
Moving on to Section 2. Let's talk about the physics of sinking and Archimedes' principle.
So, high school physics time. A submarine operates entirely on Archimedes' principle. The goal here is something called neutral buoyancy. That happens when the submarine's weight perfectly matches the weight of the water it displaces. When it hits that sweet spot, it isn't sinking and it isn't floating. It essentially just hovers effortlessly underwater, locking in at a constant depth.
And the mechanical process engineers use to actually control that buoyancy is honestly brilliant in its simplicity. It's a 3-step process. You've got these huge ballast tanks at the ends of the sub. Fill them with air and the ship floats. But when you want to pull thousands of tons of steel beneath the waves, you just flood those tanks with water. That increases the vessel's overall weight, gives you negative buoyancy, and down into the deep you go.
Okay, Section 3. Inside the Leviathan. Let's deconstruct this mechanical beast.
Once you're inside, you quickly realize a military submarine is incredibly dense. I mean, every single inch matters. It's usually a tight 3-level structure. Your top deck, that packs your highly explosive torpedoes. The bottom deck houses massive battery arrays to keep the juice flowing. And sandwiched right in the middle is the beating heart of the whole operation, the diesel machines, the motor room, and the nerve center control room where the crew makes all their tactical decisions.
But let's be real. What happens if something goes seriously wrong down there? It is absolutely mind-boggling. But in an emergency, the crew's only escape route might literally be the torpedo tubes. We are talking about claustrophobic little cylinders measuring anywhere from 12.75 to 21 inches in diameter. Just imagine trying to shimmy your way through a steel pipe that's barely wider than your own shoulders.
Oh, and it gets harder. You can't just pop out and swim to the surface. Escaping requires putting on a 23-kilogram pressure suit just to survive the immediate crush of the ocean outside. It's an intensely grueling maneuver. To give you an idea of how tough this is, officers in the Indian Navy spend a full 6 months in Visakhapatnam doing nothing but practicing this exact escape sequence.
Which brings us nicely to Section 4. Surviving the crush, operating in a deeply hostile environment.
As you dive, the ocean pressure multiplies incredibly fast. At a diving depth of 500 meters, a submarine has to somehow withstand 50 atmospheres of pressure. Think about that for a second. The ocean is squeezing the entire vessel 50 times harder than the air we feel on the surface. If the engineering fails even a little bit, the result is an instantaneous, catastrophic implosion. There's no coming back from that. So how do they prevent that violent implosion? Well, modern military engineers heavily favor the double-hull design. Instead of relying on just a single layer of metal to separate the crew from the abyss, they use 2 robust layers of high-quality steel alloys, often mixed with titanium and carbon. They integrate the ballast tanks right between those layers, giving the sub a literal extra shield of security against that crushing deep-sea pressure. And remember, down in that high-pressure darkness, there's zero sunlight. Submarines are entirely blind. To see, they rely on sound. They constantly have to choose between 2 tactical modes. There's active sonar, which emits loud pings that bounce off objects to map the area, but of course, that instantly gives away your location to the enemy. Or there's passive sonar. That's the stealthy mode, where you just sit in silence, listening closely for the distant hum of an enemy's propellers.
Speaking of stealth, this next part is a perfect example of form following function.
You know that iconic, sleek, matte black look you always see in submarine photos? Yeah, that isn't paint. It's actually a specialized outer layer of black rubber wrapped around the entire hull. It acts like a sponge, specifically designed to absorb enemy sonar pings instead of bouncing them back. It effectively turns the Leviathan invisible to sound. But here is a huge, fundamental question. With life support systems constantly pumping oxygen, massive propellers turning, and heavy computers running, where does this isolated machine actually get its energy? How do they power the whole shebang for months on end in the dark?
That brings us to Section 5, nuclear versus conventional power and removing the tether to the surface.
Understanding this tether is absolutely crucial. See, conventional submarines run on giant batteries, but to recharge them, they have to fire up diesel engines. And diesel engines? They need oxygen. So a conventional sub dangerously has to surface every few days just to breathe. Nuclear submarines, on the other hand, are a total game changer. They use an onboard nuclear reactor to generate continuous electricity. They never need oxygen for their engines, which means they can stay submerged indefinitely. Literally, their only limit is how much food they packed for the crew.
But, as you'd guess, that kind of nuclear independence comes with a massive engineering cost. Packing a nuclear reactor into a high-pressure tube underwater is insanely complex. A conventional diesel-electric sub takes about 10 years just to design. A nuclear submarine? That demands anywhere from 15 to 17 years in the design phase alone. It is a monumental, eye-watering undertaking, which is exactly why so many nations just outsource the work.
And that leads us to our final section, Section 6, the global submarine fleet and navigating modern geopolitics.
If we look at the Indian Navy's diverse fleet, it perfectly showcases this dynamic. You can see they've utilized a lot of foreign engineering for their conventional vessels. There's the Russian-origin Sindogosh, the German-origin Shishimar, and the French-designed Calvary. But check out that bottom row. The Arihan class is their very own domestic indigenous marvel. It's a fully nuclear-powered vessel equipped with those devastating ballistic missiles we talked about earlier. Zooming out a bit, we see immense investments globally from the major heavyweights. The United States operates 18 of those formidable Ohio-class submarines, with each one capable of carrying 24 massive Trident II missiles. Though it's worth noting their actual nuclear payloads were capped under the bilateral START I treaty. Meanwhile, Russia is out there deploying its highly advanced Yasin-class subs to secure its own stealth capabilities under the ice. Now, if all of this feels a bit like sci-fi or a little abstract, there's actually a way to touch this history yourself. For anyone wanting to grasp this timeline of extreme engineering in person, you can travel to Visakhapatnam. In 2002, the INS Kursura, a sub originally commissioned way back in 1969, was turned into a museum. You can actually walk through those claustrophobic corridors and see the real deal engineering with your own eyes.
Wrapping up this explainer, I want to leave you pondering a pretty profound gap. We've just seen how military engineers spend decades designing vessels that can survive 50 atmospheres of pressure and hide silently in the darkest, most hostile trenches of our planet. Given that these magnificent Leviathans have already mastered the extreme ocean depths, what other secrets of the deep are we, as civilians, yet to uncover? Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and keep questioning what lies beneath the surface.